In this video, I'm going to explain why developing mathematical vocabulary and language is so important, and I'm going to share the two most important things you can do to develop it. In the not too distant past, I was selected to play on an elite level sports team. Now this came as a bit of a surprise to me, so I was a bit underprepared to say the least. I'm going to give you two scenarios, and I want you to try to figure out what the sport I'm talking about is. Alright, so we're playing a vertical stack. We've got Dan, Timmel and Ruben handling, with Ruben and Timmel popping. We've got Timmers and Cletus as primaries and Louis Delory as secondaries, forcing home on the turn. Play began and my head was spinning. People were yelling out things like brick, chili, dump, and as amusing as these terms were, I had to concentrate on just one thing: my role. Alright, any ideas after the scenario one? Some of you are probably looking at my lack of muscles and going, I'll rule out things like rugby and weightlifting. Fair call. Now scenario two. All right, we're going a puppy fence. We've got Jono as puppy, Laurie on the left, Huss on the right of the fence. We're going Max and Lisa deeps and me deep, forcing Flick away. So play began and I was okay for a little while this time, until I realised one of my teammates was shouting at me, "No breaks, no breaks, no breaks." And then after the third repetition, I realised I must have done something wrong. But what sport am I talking about? If you guessed ultimate frisbee, well done. Next challenge is to actually figure out what I was talking about in each of those scenarios. For a lot of students, maths is like that. The questions make about as much sense as all these jargony terms that I've been using. And imagine trying to complete a test on frisbee, not knowing what any of those things mean. Even if you get the basic concept, a misunderstanding in terminology can just throw you way off track, like it did in scenario two for me. So what happened in the end of scenario two, I realized that I was standing on the wrong side of my player defending. We were supposed to be forcing in a particular direction, and I was standing on the wrong side, so I'd opened up the entire field to them. I thought that no breaks meant, I was slacking somehow on defense, so I was being really animated, waving my arms around to defend, but no breaks means don't let them break the force that we were trying to complete as a team. I realized that afterwards, but that mistake was made because I didn't understand terminology. So how do we teach our students to avoid problems like these, teach them vocabulary and language? Well, I think it's pretty simple actually. Repetition and context. Not a single parent I know has taught their children the magic words and had them remember the word please every single time from then on. They've had to repeat it again and again and again in that context, in that same context of handing them something or getting them something that they want. Repetition, super important. Context matters for a couple of things. Context matters because words can have different meanings. So please can mean, make me happy, please me. Please can be a polite way of asking for things, or please can also be like police, like whatever. So context is important for that, but I think more importantly, context helps us remember things far better because we've got another trigger to remember things by. You're more likely to remember when you've got another trigger when it's instead of it being written on the board or recited, which is completely removed from a context. And this is what happened to me in Japanese. I'd learned that for 4 years of Japanese, and I could not tell you more than 4 words now outside of counting numbers. That's because it was not done with a context. And yet I went over to India, and in 4 weeks I could hold a basic conversation and get along pretty well because, again, they had repetition and context. When you're overseas, things are being repeated all the time, and the situations you find yourself in give you a context to remember things by. So what can we do as teachers, maths teachers, to instill this? Well, the first thing I think you need to do is unapologetically commit to using mathematical terminology. You don't see a cricket coach going to their players, "Oh, look, yeah, I want you to stand 10 steps back and 5 steps to the right over there." No, they use the word slips. And if their players don't get that, they'll explain it, but they'll continue to repeat the word slips, slips, slips until it sinks into the common understanding of the group. And we need to do that in our own maths classes. So commit to that, repeat it. Secondly, provide a context. And I think one of the best ways of doing that is games. So games give you a chance to repeat things, they get you thinking out loud, and they give you a context to repeat those things in. So I've created a range of games at thinksquare.com.au that you can see that will get kids thinking out loud and repeating mathematical terms so they sink in and become part of common language in your classroom. So I hope that helps, but remember, repetition, context.